Welcome to the Cybersecurity and Cloud Podcast, the podcast where we learn from cybersecurity experts how to stay safe, private, and secure on the cloud and in code. CSCP is hosted by Francesco Cipollone, your cybersecurity friend with a passion for all things cyber and sharing stories of other professionals with you. Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cybersecurity and Cloud Podcast. Today, we continue on the show discussing about diversity and application security, cloud security, and everything security. We have a wonderful guest that I had the pleasure to have conversation and chat outside. And we had a deep discussion with Stephanie around how somebody that is from left field can then come into cybersecurity. And I thought for our audience, this was a perfect example to inspire the new generation of people that it's not impossible, even though it's very hard, but it's not impossible. And there are folks out there that have done it. So I've invited you, Stephanie, the head of application security program for Markel. And Stephanie, you can make the joke about it. But welcome to the show, Stephanie. Tell us a bit more about you.
Thank you. I am super excited to be here. So I am the head of application security at Markel. And I can say that because I'm the only one that does application security at Markel. So therefore, I call myself the head. However, though, I do know that having the title, the head of application security, does get you a lot of DMs and LinkedIn from vendors. So I try not to share that, but yes, I am the head of application security at Markel. So I've been in this position for about almost 2 years. Next month, it'll be 2 years. And it definitely has been a journey getting here.
Congratulations. And as we were chatting, you mentioned what got me inspired on doing this podcast with you was your journey that was particularly unusual, but it's something that inspired me a lot. And hence why I wanted to bring it to our folks and to our audience, because I think it was good. And if you can tell our audience a little bit, how did you get into cyber and why?
Yeah. So I like to joke with people that I have a very eclectic background. If you look at my resume is all over the place. And I usually get the question of how the heck did you get into cyber? So I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. I have a master's degree in professional counseling. I was a drug and alcohol therapist. Then I worked for the Air Force, mitigating suicides within the Air Force. And then I moved down to Virginia because my husband got a really great job down there. And I was looking for a counseling position in Virginia, and I could not find a position for the life of me. The certification requirements were more stringent than they were in my previous state, Pennsylvania. So I guess you can say I was kind of desperate. So I gave my resume to my husband's boss, who gave it to a recruiter, who gave it to their sister company. And they reached out to me and said, hey, we have this position. It's an administrative assistant at a company called Markel. Do you want to go ahead and interview it? And I was like, you know what the heck? I will take this while I'm looking for a position as a counselor. So I interviewed, I got that position, supporting the IT executive leadership, as well as supporting our CISO. So I did that for about a year and a half, when my CISO started to take notice that, she's like, Stephanie, you're smart, you have a master's degree, let's try to get you into cybersecurity. And I looked at her and I said, I think you're crazy, because I don't understand how a behavioral health background fits with cybersecurity. And she's like, no, it does. Let me show you it. And I was like, no, forget it. I don't want to get into the cybersecurity thing, because when you think of cybersecurity, you think of a hacker, in a hoodie behind a computer with their hood up, breaking into things. And I'm like, that's not something I want to do. Like, I have a counseling background. So I thought about it, and eventually I was like, you know what the heck? I'll go and chat with her to see what this cybersecurity thing is all about. So we had breakfast. We discussed cybersecurity, and I was like, wow, it sounds really interesting, because she told me about all the different areas of cybersecurity. And I said, okay, sign me up. How do I get into cybersecurity? So she gave me a stack of books and said, read these first. And I don't even remember what the books were. They were something that IBM wrote, and it was very technical, and I understood none of it. But I'm like, you know what? I'm determined to get into cybersecurity, so I'll do it. Read the books. And, yeah, right. Great. I read the books, and that was like in August. I think it was like August 2019. No positions were available. So she said, why don't you shadow somebody, on my GSS, team? And so I said, okay, I'll shadow somebody. And I did. I shadowed the SOC, and I said, I don't really like the SOC. I was like, I don't think I'm going to do really well in cybersecurity. So a few months later, a position opened up on her team, and it was for a third-party security risk analyst. And I interviewed for it. I thought I bombed the interview completely. Apparently, they liked me. They offered me the position, and that was my foot in the door. I was a security risk analyst for third party, had no idea what I was doing, but I showed passion and grit and a desire to learn. So, I did that for about a year. And then how did I get into application security? Well, our application security person, she got a offer at another organization. So she put in her 2 weeks. And this was in around July 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. And so my boss was like, I don't know what we're going to do. Stephanie, you're smart. You have a master's degree. You take half of application security. I'll take the other half. I know, right? They just because I hold a master's degree, they think I'm smart, can handle anything. But sure, I think that way sometimes too. So he was like, you take half of application security. I'll take the other half. I'm like, okay, I have no idea what I'm doing, but I didn't know what I was doing in third-party risk. So what the heck? I'm up for the challenge.
Let's roll with it.
Yeah, let's roll with it, right? So I took on pen testing and DAST, and he took on SAST. He didn't really do much with the SAST. So it was just me doing the pen testing, organizing the pen testing, and doing DAST scans. Did that for about 6 months while we talked about finding another individual to come on to application security. I fell in love with application security. I fell in love with the program. I knew I could improve this program because that's what I love doing. I love taking programs and improving them. So I went to my boss in January 2021, and I said, you know what, give it all to me. I love application security. I will take on the program. And he said, it's a very steep learning curve. Are you sure you're up for the challenge? And I was like, let's do this. Like, I can definitely do this. And here I am today. I have a kick-ass application security program. And, yeah.
Amazing journey, Stephanie. So thank you so much for sharing it. And
yeah.
if you want, now that you've seen, the risk aspect there, you came in this with kind of a psychological evaluation eyes. So you have a very particular set of eyes. And what do you think is good or bad in our industry? Tell me the state of the industry, if you want to take it from an application security, cloud security, or risk, the areas that you were exposed. What's missing? What's broken in your opinion? Or what's working?
So the cybersecurity industry, and more specifically the application security industry, is fantastic, right? Once you're in, you're in. If you can get your foot in the door and you're in, you can do anything within cybersecurity. But I think right now that, actually trying to get your foot in the door is proving more difficult for individuals like coming out of college or those wanting to do a career change into cyber. So I think what's broken is the organization's not having enough entry-level positions for those coming out of college. Also, and we could talk more about that as well, but from an application security perspective, what's broken in that area, I think it's because developers aren't taught security and they're not shown security. And so getting developers to understand security and to adapt the different tools and techniques that security puts into place is proving to be really difficult, because from what I've seen, developers, I like to, and I'm not here to make fun of developers, because I have a lot of developer friends and I love them to death and they're all so unique, but I feel like they're in their little developer box and they know what they know in regards to development. And when security comes in and tries to introduce new tooling or new methods, they freak out a little bit because they don't understand it. And I believe that if, universities and colleges can incorporate more security into the computer science program, then I feel like once developers come out of, college and they get into their job, they're going to be really, really excited about security. Like, for example, I have one developer manager. He's fantastic. He gets security. And there are things that, I'll tell him and he'll be like, okay, like I understand why you have to do that, Stephanie. I understand why we need this tool. I understand why I need to go back and fix this vulnerability. And it's when he gets it and when he's a big advocate for security, I kind of do a really big cheer on the inside, because I'm like, yes, why can't all developers be like you? Because, security isn't here to hurt you or harm you. Security here is here to protect the organization, and we're all responsible for it.
Right. And I do understand, everybody has different priority, but how do you fundamentally get involved? Maybe how do you make it a priority for a developer aside from the training aspect?
Yeah, well, I think that's where my behavioral health background comes into play, because when, instead of pushing an agenda on the developers and saying, this is what you need to do, the end, security says you have to do it. There's no ands, ifs or buts to it. Instead of that, it's the, let me listen to your issues. Let me listen to your gripes about, what I'm trying to implement, and let's have a conversation about it. And I'm able to be empathetic towards them. I'm able to understand where they're coming from, and I'm able to speak with them on a kind of a human level to understand their needs and to understand their wants. I mean, I know all developers are busy. I mean, what developer isn't? And with me trying to implement a tool, of course, they're going to be upset about it. Of course, because it slows down their process. And so, I take the time to actually listen to them and listen to understand, what they're going through, and, be able to communicate my why, but understanding their why as well.
So empathy and relating to them and relating to the problem has worked for you and has move the dial into helping developers be more secure. And
I do have to caveat that it doesn't help with every developer, because you still have your OG developers who are sick in the muds, and you have to have a little bit more patience with them and more leniency with them. But we're getting there.
No, and that's good. And I think everybody is a little bit on a maturity journey towards people that get it immediately. They heard security day in and day out, and maybe people that, they see security as an additional burden. But maybe how did you involve maybe the business aspect or a product owner to make it really important for the developer to actually fix things? Are they involved in conversation?
So I try to involve them as much as possible, but because they don't understand security and I don't understand developer, there's kind of like a language barrier there. And if I were a little bit more technical, I think I would be able to relate to them more. And if they were a little bit more security conscious, they would be able to relate to me more. So I think there's a huge communication barrier there. But I'll give an example that may help. So we decided to replace our SaaS tool with a different tool. Our previous SaaS tool wasn't working for the developers. It was slowing them down. It was clunky. It wasn't working with their processes. And I didn't know that because they weren't communicating it to me. I just thought that, hey, here's a SaaS tool put in from the previous AppSec person. I thought they were using it and all was well.
All was good.
So I made it a point to do like a roadshow with this because I noticed that the SaaS tool adoption just wasn't there. They just weren't utilizing it as much as, we thought they would. So I sat down with developer managers and developers, and I listened to them and said, what do you like about this tool? What do you not like about this tool? Are you going to use it? Are you not going to use it? I asked them so many questions, and I said, I'm here to listen to you because I don't want to implement a tool and it hurt your processes. And then you hate me because you have to use this tool. So, after sitting down with them, and I did the roadshow between March and May, after sitting down with a lot of developers and listening to them, I discovered that, the tool just wasn't working and they didn't like it. And so I said, okay, let's fix this. Let's get you guys involved. Let's find a new SaaS tool. And because I want you guys to like the tool, Right. So we went out and looked for a new SaaS tool, and we found one that was more developer friendly, that was developer centered, that they really, really loved. And I brought in so many different developers because I wanted to get their opinions on it, because they're the ones that are going to be utilizing it more than I am. And it's important for them to be happy. So I was able to, narrow down to this one tool. And, right now we're in the process of getting it implemented, and they're actually excited about it. I actually I had a developer message me and said, hey, I heard we're getting a new tool, this tool. I said, oh yeah, well, I guess the cat's out of the bag. Yeah, we are. He's like, well, I'm really excited. I've seen this tool. I'm really excited to use it. And I'm like, again, inside, I'm like jumping up and down. So I'm like, yay,
And you made developers. Yep. And you made them involved in the process. So that's really, really important things, because they will be the champion of a product that they all choose.
Yes. And that is so important, because you're right. If they're not involved, and if they're not involved in the process, and they see security as like a stopgap instead of like a partner, then they're going to rebel against you. Mm-hmm. Once involved in the process and help them understand that security is not saying no, we're just here to just help everybody improve everything, I think it's much, much better.
And I think there's a very important caveat that whenever selecting any tool, from an AppSec, from a CloudSec, from an infrastructure security, it's super, super important to involve the people that are ultimately going to use it, and not put a choking point to the developer, but really work on a process and procedures and tooling to implement that really, really drive it forward.
This episode is brought to you by the generosity of AppSec Phoenix Ltd. AppSec helps startups and enterprises solve complex software security problems by using smart data aggregation and complex machine learning software. Discover how AppSec Phoenix helps CISO and developers remove friction and maximize the use of DevSecOps professionals at www.appsecphoenix.com. AppSec Phoenix is the new and smart dev-first way to manage your software vulnerability. Follow the tag #AppSecSmart.
I want to pick a point that I think was really important that we touched a little bit about. You mentioned before, talking with the various team, with the various people, it's sometimes a really big language barrier, and can require additional knowledge and additional language. So if that's the case, how are we allowing the new generation of people into this very technical field?
Yeah, so I think there has to be a difference. So in regards to application security, I think there's a huge difference between your AppSec analyst and your AppSec engineer. And I think that's something that individuals don't understand, that there is a major difference. Like the AppSec engineer needs to be technical. They need to have coding background, so they're able to talk to developers. They're able to communicate, why you need a header, why you need, this here and that there. Whereas an analyst like me isn't as technical, because I'm more about analyzing the data that comes from the tools. So for individuals like coming out of school, out of college, I feel like they need to decide whether or not they need to go to the technical side of cybersecurity, or the technical side of application security, or the non-technical side. Because, cybersecurity as a whole, you have the technical side, or at least I view the technical side. Like you have your SOC team, you have your architectural and engineering team, you have your identity and access management team. Versus the non-technical side, where you have like your GRC, which is more information security, but we still like to say cybersecurity as a whole. Your governance, risk, and compliance. Application security kind of straddles both the technical and the non-technical side. So for them coming out of college, these new generation of individuals, they have to decide, do they want to be technical? Do they not want to be technical? And then they need to decide, okay, if I want to be technical, then they need to focus more on learning coding languages, being able to, break through that communication barrier with developers and being able to communicate with them better, learning an SDLC, learning the shift left mentality versus, if you're in application security and you want to be an analyst, you don't necessarily need, it's nice to know the technical stuff, but you don't necessarily need a strong technical background to do this position.
Nice. No, I think you touched the point that there are multiple places and multiple jobs in cybersecurity. In order for us to fill the gap, the massive gap that we have, I think we have more than 4 million jobs open just in the US. We're never going to be able to fill it if we put the bar so high that only the Google or the Amazon or the other people will be able to fill those jobs. And
there is, so for individuals that come to me like on LinkedIn, or like I did have an internal mentee, and I see these individuals posting on LinkedIn, and they're saying, I want to get into cybersecurity. How do I get into cybersecurity? My first question to them is, well, what do you want to do in cybersecurity? Because there's so many different areas in cybersecurity. You want to be a hacker? Do you want to be a pen tester? Do you want to work for the SOC? Do you want to be GRC? Like, that's your first step, is to decide, what are you good at and what do you really want to do? Explore that, and then go down that path, that career path. But unfortunately, a lot of individuals coming out of college, they just hear the word cybersecurity. They've taken the general cybersecurity courses. They haven't really specialized in anything. So they're trying to get in any sort of cybersecurity field. And I think that's what frustrates them a lot, is because they're applying for any and everything under the sun in the cybersecurity career field. Right. And what they need to do is actually figure out, what do you actually want to do in cybersecurity?
I think that's a very important point, that as soon as you get out of university, the thing that you hear is pen tester maybe, or you try to go immediately for the high ticket items that require an enormous technical knowledge. And then maybe you ignore the GRC or the network security or the infrastructure security or the vulnerability management, or, those jobs that are not highly advertised, but they're super, super required for cyber to actually complete the landscape, identity and access management. People don't come from university studying identity and access management.
No, everybody wants to do the sexiness of cybersecurity. Everybody wants to be a hacker behind the screen, is what I'm noticing. These recent college graduates, they all want to be either in the SOC or they want to be a hacker, behind the computer screen with the hoodie up. And because it looks sexy, because you see it on movies and you're like, oh, I want to be that person hacking into a computer. But there's so much more to cybersecurity than just that position, so much more.
Yeah. And then when they get into the field, they discover that is a lot of legwork. It's not the one-click button hack that you see in the movies.
So this is what my internal mentee, he wanted to get into cybersecurity, and I was helping guide him into cybersecurity, and he loves try hack me, and he loves pen testing, and I was trying to get him into a career field like that. But I had to kind of level set him a little bit and let him know that cybersecurity, especially like pen testing or hacking, ethical hacking, it's not all exciting work. When you get into a corporate environment, it's not all exciting. There's going to be spreadsheets that you're going to have to do, or put together governance documents, or, fight the politics within an organization. Like, it's not all sexy work. It's not what the movies portray it as. And, unfortunately, that's real world. So it didn't diffuse his bubble. He just accepted a position as within a SOC. So he was still excited to get into the cybersecurity industry. But I had a level set with him, like, it's not all sexy work. You gotta, there's always bad that comes with the good.
I think even from a SOC perspective, you start, even when you approach, you start understanding that you need to understand much more how things work before you understand how to break things or how to react from broken things.
Yes.
And I think that's what also one of the issues, where you also have people disamorated from cyber quickly, because they see the level that they need to go and the journey that they need to go from zero to hero, that is massive, because they need to understand network security, operating system. And I recently had the same exact discussion with a going to be graduate, and he asked me, okay, how do I do zero trust? And I said, okay, what do you know about network security and network? It's like, well, nothing really, but I wanted to do zero trust in the cloud. And I said, okay, but it's a buzzword. There is a lot more meats behind it that, learn the basics and then get to the abstract concept. As an industry, we don't do each other a favor because we tend to promote buzzword, and every year there is a new buzzword. I don't know, which one is the latest year buzzword that you heard?
I'm not gonna. I'll tell a funny story. And Mom, if you're listening to this, turn it off right now. So I try to educate my parents. They're a little bit older. I try to educate them on creating complex passwords, and they, as much as I try to get them to adopt, like a password keeper or, something like they can put on their phone, they still are old school and like to write down their passwords and put it around their monitors. And every time I see that, I have to, crumple up the papers and put it somewhere because it drives me insane. So
reinforcement.
Yeah. So they have some simple passwords that drive me up the wall. But hey, you can lead a horse to water. You can always make them drink. So, yeah.
I guess it's an educational aspect. With anybody, it's a journey. So you need to positively reinforce the behavior instead of encouraging or pointing out to negative behavior. And
yep.
I think it's a good learning. I ended up getting my mom to get into using multi-factor and different credentials by just replacing her laptop with one of my old one. The system was there, it was that or nothing. And slowly but surely she started using it. I think it's just every person has a different things, and we need to understand there's a maturity journey that is an additional step that each one, developer, business, everybody else needs to think about. It's not something natural as us in the industry. We don't think we think naturally, what are the issues? What is the risk impact assessment? And I think maybe I wanted to bring it, now that we're coming to the conclusion, to more, how do we, it's my particular pet peeve that we need to talk more about risk, because more people can understand from a gut feeling and from an intuitive feeling a risk assessment, or this is more risky than that, versus you have 4,000 vulnerabilities that are critical. I think from an application security, from a cybersecurity in general, we should be able to talk more risk rather than just pure technical term, because then we empower the new generation, but also the business as a whole to talk more and get more involved in cybersecurity. Because as you said, it's a language barrier. We remove the language barrier, we maybe excite more people to get involved into cybersecurity. What do you think, Stephanie?
Yeah. So communicating risk is, a top priority, with not just in application security, but within cybersecurity. But like you said, it's difficult to get like the business side to understand risk. And, sometimes when the business wants to do something that is a little bit more risky than what cybersecurity likes, it's hard to convince them to go otherwise, especially if it's a huge benefit for the business. For example, like when I was in my third party position, there were times where, the business owner would come to me and say, I want to, have a relationship with this third party. Okay, great. Let me do my risk assessment on them to see, how risky, they are with us transferring data to them, whether or not they can keep our data safe. If they came back as a high risk, I would take that to the business and say, look, there is a high risk with this third party. I'm going to recommend that you don't pursue this relationship with them. But if the business owner feels that it's more of a benefit to pursue that relationship, it's really, really hard to convince them otherwise. You can have all the data in the world. You can translate it into financial terms as well and say, on the happenstance that, we transfer all this data to this third party and they suffer a data breach, this is how much it's going to cost them. This is how much it's going to cost us. This is how much reputational damage we will have. Sometimes a business still wants to pursue that relationship. And unfortunately, in real world, sometimes our hands are tied and there's nothing that we can do about it. Because, if your CEO or COO or CFO wants to pursue this relationship and security says, I don't think it's a good idea, but they still want to pursue it, well, they're probably going to pursue it, most likely if they see the benefit. But we still like to educate them as much as possible. We still like to let them know that there is a risk. We will document the risk so that, so that we can CYA, cover our butts and show that we did show them that there was a risk.
Ultimately, we are just consultants, so we enable the business to do business stuff, and the business in general is most of the time is more aware of the risk, opportunity, rewards. So if they see the value in going with somebody, and we assume that they will have evaluated the risk properly.
Yeah.
Not always true, but we hire those people because they have better risk judgment than others.
That's true. And you have to have a great balance between, security and the organization being able to do their job. And so if you have a strong security within an organization, the business side may not be able to do their job. And then they're going to get frustrated at security, and then nobody's going to be happy. And so you have to find that really good balance between, let's implement security, but not strong enough security that the business can't do their job, but enough security that, we won't suffer a data breach and we'll be able to protect our data as well. Wow. So, in regards to like that third party, risk, it's okay. Let's come to a compromise of, okay, you want to pursue this vendor with, this high security risk. Let's come to a compromise of, let's not give them all of our data, or let's kind of back down on how much data we give them or what types of data we give them. That way, just in case a breach happens, it's not going to be as bad as it would have been if we gave them all this data. So it's a lot of it in regards to explaining risk to the business. It's all about compromise and negotiations, what I feel like.
And I like your approach. That is the pragmatic approach that usually works in cybersecurity. That is, presenting a problem, presenting a risk, and then, okay, if you really want to do this, let's try to find a way to make it work in a way that is mitigation and working for both of us as a security and the business. I really like it.
Thanks.
Stephanie, thank you so much. Now that we're coming to the conclusion, we have a tradition in the podcast that is closing the podcast with a positive message for everybody. And so you can choose the positive message that you want.
I have a big smile on my face, so keep going if you have more to say.
No, that's it. It's like, go for it and inspire our audience with your positive message.
Sure. I'm like a bushel of positivity. Like, I live my life in a positive manner. So if anybody on the podcast can't see, like, I have my big smile on my face because I always love sharing positive messages. So I'm gonna narrow it down to two because I could go all day on positive messages. But first, positive message is to those getting into cybersecurity. I posted on my LinkedIn profile today about, those individuals trying to break into cybersecurity and how hard it is. And, those running into brick walls every time they try to apply for a position. And, my message to them is, don't give up. It's going to take some time to get your foot into the door. It's going to take, you may go down a different journey in order to get into cybersecurity, like I did. I mean, I never thought I would be an administrative assistant that now becoming a cybersecurity person, but it happens. So don't give up. Keep trying your best to get into cybersecurity. It will happen eventually. Just never give up on that. And two, I will leave you with a really good quote. So my CISO, Patty Titus, she is phenomenal. She is a big influence in my life and my career right now. And she's helped me mold who I am today. And she in one of her podcasts that she did, she said a really great quote that I have on my computer right in front of me that I look at always. So she said, seek to be the best always, no matter your gender, age, ethnic background, or the scars that have made you strong. And I feel like every day, if we can wake up and seek to be the best version of ourselves, then we can do amazing things in this world. So that's the positivity for you today.
Wow, it's going to be difficult for other people to top up.
Well, thank you.
No, thank you so much, Stephanie. It was wonderful to have you on the show. Before we close, where can people read more about you? You know, do you have a blog? Do you write more on LinkedIn, Twitter? Where they can find you?
LinkedIn. Find me on LinkedIn. I post great things on LinkedIn. I share great things on LinkedIn. I'm always advocating for the cybersecurity community, especially women, to get into cybersecurity. I'm part of the Women's Executive Forum. And then I'm open to helping individuals, get their foot into cybersecurity. I'm always up for mentoring individuals. So find me on LinkedIn. Just look me up.
That's fantastic. So Stephanie, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for listening in. This is Francesco Cipollone, your host, and go out there, inspire the next generation of people to be more secure, but also to get inside cyber. It's scary, but there is a way, there is a path. And people like Stephanie are giving an example, and Stephanie's post as well is giving an example to show that there is a way, regardless of your gender, background, where you come from. It doesn't matter. Just put the hard work and you'll get in cybersecurity. Thank you very much, Stephanie. And everybody stay safe.
Alrighty, thanks.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Please leave us a review on Apple Podcast and post it on social media tagging Cybersecurity Cloud Podcast for a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. Discover other episodes at www.cybersecuritypodcast.com.